If you want an Android smartphone that's unencumbered with vendor or mobile operator skins and bundle gaps, and receives timely OS updates, Google's Nexus range has been available to fill this role since January 2010. The latest in a line stretching from the HTC-made Nexus 1, through a couple of Samsung devices Nexus S and Galaxy Nexus is the Nexus 4. This time, Google has partnered with LG for its showcase Android handset. The Nexus 4, which runs the latest Android 4.2 Jelly Bean OS, comes with 8GB or 16GB of internal storage. There's no external expansion, so choose your model carefully. The 8GB version costs UK £239 incorporated VAT from Google's Play Store $299, $349, while the 16GB version costs UK £279 $349 or $399. We were sent the 16GB model for review, and it rapidly turned out to be a hot ticket. Google's UK store sold out within 30 minutes of opening for Nexus for Business on November 13. The pattern repeated in other countries. At the time of writing, the store's message remains: "We are out of inventory. Please check back soon," although it's still available at a premium from Go2 and Carphone Warehouse in the UK. Until now, LG hadn't exactly set the smartphone world alight, although its recent high-end Optimus 4X HD and Optimus G, on which the Nexus 4 is based, handsets were well received. So let's see what the fuss is all about. Design: the £279 16GB Nexus 4 doesn't look like a device that costs £250 less than Apple's 16GB iPhone 5, or around £120 less than Samsung's 16GB Galaxy S3, but that's because Google makes little or no margin on the device. Go2, by contrast, charges £399.99 for the 16GB model on pay-as-you-go, for example. Hence the feeding frenzy at the Play Store and the thriving eBay market. A quick survey of the UK site showed the 8GB model going for around £371 and the 16GB model fetching around £428 at the time of writing. The 4.7-in. Nexus 4 has a 1280 by 768 pixel IPS screen and front 1.3MP and rear 8MP cameras. It's based on LG's Optimus G, but has a more rounded appearance. This is a classy-looking smartphone, built around a 4.7-inch Gorilla Glass 2 protected screen, measuring 68.7mm wide by 133.9mm deep by 9.1mm thick and weighing 139 g. That's 2.7 in. By 5.27 in. By 0.36 in. and 4.9 oz in imperial measurements. For those who care about such things, it's 0.5mm thicker than the Galaxy S3 and 1.5mm thicker than the iPhone 5. Weight-wise, it's 6g heavier than the S3 and all of 27g heavier than the iPhone 5. It may be thicker and heavier than the iPhone 5 and Galaxy S3, but the Nexus 4, which is slightly rounded at the top and bottom to counteract its otherwise rather angular appearance, feels comfortable in the hand and will fit into most shirt or jacket pockets. The chamfered sides have a rubberized finish that helps with grip, and even the metallic finish band framing the screen doesn't cheapen the overall look, largely because it's reasonably understated. The back is a flat piece of Gorilla Glass 2 with a near-unique feature. It's also used on LG's Optimus G crystal reflection etching that polarizes incident light to give the jewel-like sparkly effect. This sounds as though it could seem tacky, but in fact, like the rest of the design, it's relatively discreet. The back carries the main 8-megapixel camera and an LED flash, Nexus rather than Google plus LG branding, and a small vertical speaker grille. There are no physical buttons on the front of the Nexus 4. Instead, there are on-screen buttons for back, home and a list of recent apps. This not only takes up screen space, but also leaves a fair amount of unused bezel above and below the display. There's just a notification LED in the middle of the bottom bezel. The edges are pretty uncluttered, too. On the left side there's a volume rocker and a slide-out micro SIM tray, while the right side has the on/off/sleep button. At the top is a 3.5mm headphone jack and one of the two microphones. The other mic is at the bottom, to the right of the micro USB 2.0 charging/PC connection port. The micro USB port can also be used with slim port adapter cables to connect to an external display, while simultaneously charging the phone via a second micro USB port on the adapter. You can buy an HDMI cable on Amazon for UK pounds 23.95/$29.95, with VGA, DVI and DisplayPort versions to follow at the end of November. Strictly speaking, the battery isn't removable, but if you're determined, it's possible to get inside the handset by removing two small Torx screws at the bottom and prizing the back off. We've been carrying the Nexus 4 for a week or so, and found it pretty resistant to scratches and minor bumps. It's not suffered any drops from significant height onto hard surfaces, so we can't comment on its ability to withstand serious mistreatment. Features: the Nexus 4 is powered by a state-of-the-art social, the Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro, comprising the quad-core ATQ 8064 CPU running at 1.5 GHz and the Adreno 320 GPU. It's backed by 2 GB of RAM and, in our reviewed unit, 16 GB of internal, non-expandable, storage. Out of the box, 12.92 GB of this storage was available for user apps and data. The screen, as mentioned above, measures a sizable 4.7 in across the diagonal and is a 1280 by 768 pixel IPS unit protected by tough Corning Gorilla Glass 2. The high pixel density 318 ppi makes for sharp images, and the display can go very bright. It turns right up, although you'll pay for this in battery life. Contrast is good, colors are reasonably accurate, at least to the naked eye, and the touch screen is very responsive. Connectivity is good, with one proviso that may or may not be significant depending on where you live and which mobile operator you use. I refer, of course, to LTE support, which is not enabled on the Nexus 4, despite the presence on the motherboard of a Qualcomm LTE chip WTR1605L and an LTE-compliant modem MDM9615A. What you do get is quad-band GSM/GPR/Edge, Penta-band 3G WCDMA/UMTs and DCHSPA Plus support up to 42 Mbps download. In the UK, where this review was conducted, the recently launched TE Everything Everywhere, formed from the merger of T-Mobile and Orange LTE network, has limited coverage and is currently experiencing teething troubles, so the lack of LTE support is unlikely to trouble many users. Elsewhere, things may well be different. Completing the wireless lineup is dual-band 802.11 and Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 3.0, NFC, Android Beam and GPS/GLONASS. There's also support for external monitors via wireless display based on the Wi-Fi Alliance's Miracast standard and wireless charging via the Key standard. Unfortunately, we were unable to test either of these features as we had neither a Miracast-compliant display nor a Key-compliant charging station. Like all high-end smartphones, the Nexus 4 is bristling with sensors, accelerometer, compass, ambient light, gyroscope and barometer, the latter's primary purpose being to deliver altitude data for faster GPS lock-on.